Will a chance meeting with the Lethal Protector spell doom for the young Spider-Man? Well, let's hop into the pages of giant-sized Spider-Man issue number 1 to find out what happens next, shall we? Alrighty then, so as we join this special issue, Miles has been given yet another hero test, courtesy of his brand new mentor, Misty Knight. Basically, he's being sent to learn that discretion is the better part of valor, using his camouflage ability to sneak into a warehouse operated by some gun runners. It would seem that some new crook calling himself Obsidian Black, and yes, I know that's on the nose even for a comic book villain, has been dealing in high-tech guns that look a hell of a lot like Rabble Tech, the Rabble you'll remember as the brand new CODY ZIGLAR villain that kicked off his run on the Miles Morales book. Now, while Miles is cat-like in his stealth, unfortunately there's another player raiding the same warehouse the same night. The guards all arm up to deal with the threat, and it's eventually revealed that this troublemaker is actually Dylan Brock, aka the newest Venom the Lethal Protector. Only it would seem that the symbiote is actually more in control right now than Dylan himself. These guns hurt a bunch of people on the street, and Venom has now come to even the score. This of course puts poor Miles in a rather complicated position. He needs to actually protect the gun runners before they can get killed by Venom. Now this is actually an interesting idea for a meetup here because both Miles and Dylan have a lot in common. They are the new young heirs to these big important superhero legacies, though in reality, they don't actually end up meeting each other. In fact, Miles pretty much jumps to the conclusion that it must be Eddie in that suit. And Dylan never really 100% corrects him, just saying that he's not Eddie, he's Venom. Now, while the big boss Obsidian puts up a tough fight, making use of both sonic weapons and hard light constructs, ultimately, the united force of Venom and Spider-Man is enough to take him down. It's after this, things once again end up taking a turn for the uncomfortable. Miles wants to pump this guy for information, while Venom simply wants to gut him like a fish. This actually leads to a very compelling little back and forth between the two, where Miles actually calls upon a lot of the stuff he's learned in therapy, saying that a real protector, lethal or otherwise, would be more invested in making sure that they cut these guns off at the source so more regular people can't be hurt. Sadly, Venom isn't hearing any of this, which means we get treated to an oh-so-customary by this point hero versus hero battle, and why yes, before you even have to ask, Miles's Venom blade does cross against Dylan's own symbiote sword. And honestly, I feel a panel like this is basically the whole reason a story like this exists, though again, I'd be remiss not to mention that this is actually a giant-sized issue, meaning you get this story as well as the reprinting of an old Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man story, a very famous one, wherein Miles' mother Rio is actually killed by the Ultimate Venom symbiote, something I always thought would actually end up being important again here in the main 616 universe, and perhaps the fact that they're putting these stories together means that CODY ZIGLAR actually has plans for it in the future. Miles gets overwhelmed by Venom's sheer ferocity, but luckily Misty Knight is waiting in the wings to help bail him out. They grab some of Obsidian Black's sonic weapons and let Dylan have it with both barrels, which if nothing else allows Dylan to briefly regain control over his and the symbiote's union before he eventually makes a tactical retreat, which is a shame because, like I said, the two characters never actually met in what was supposed to be this big crossover team-up. The day is saved, but unfortunately the battle is far from over. Miles knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that these weapons being trafficked were indeed built by the Rabble. Worse still, her work is actually getting better, more refined, almost like she has a benefactor now pumping a lot of real money into her projects, and as we soon learn as the comic comes to a close, that benefactor is actually none other than the Hobgoblin Roderick Kingsley, who has recruited the Rabble, who didn't die after her last run-in with Miles in an attempt to help win the gang war. Oh, but wait, here's another twist. Apparently the Rabble has actually lost her ability to communicate with machines and is doing all of this off by heart. But to figure out where this story goes next, we'll have to pick up the next issue of Miles Morales Spider-Man, another tie into gang war, which, you guessed it, dropped this week. And so that was giant-sized Spider-Man issue number 1, everybody. An issue that was perfectly fun, perfectly exciting, but nothing that particularly knocked my socks off. Miles and Venom meet for the first time. They have themselves a little fight, but that's about it. There's no real decisive winner, and technically Miles never really did meet Dylan Brock, as I mentioned before, which is a shame, because it seems like the characters might actually have a lot in common and a lot to talk about. Maybe this is just Ziegler planting the seeds for some stories he plans to tell down the line. He does tend tend to do that a lot. Seeing the rabble return so early is pretty cool too. I fell in love with this series mainly because of what a great classic back-to-basics villain the rabble was. And now we're actually starting to see a whole brand new compelling angle to her character. The Hobgoblin has made her a mentee, much in the same way Misty Knight has taken Miles under her wing. Hell, between recruiting Miles' new arch-nemesis in the rabble and recruiting his uncle the Prowler to fight him and help him win the gang war, I gotta say Roderick Kingsley is really flexing his clever villainous muscles in ways we haven't seen him in a very long time. Hell, the way things are going now, maybe Peter should keep the Green Goblin and Miles can have the Hobgoblin. Ultimately, I would give this issue a 7 out of 10. I'm glad I read this one first before the Miles book. You should definitely do that too, because the story will make a lot more sense when you do.
Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers. A lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.